Thank you so much for all coming to join together and talk about a topic that's certainly quite exciting for us here. I have a couple of co-presenters I will be very excited to introduce to you in a moment. And so the topic today is what happens when you enter the room. Around 2,000 years ago, Jesus spoke to the woman at the well and spoke to her about a time coming very soon when we wouldn't have to worship in a particular place and wouldn't have to travel to a particular mountain to worship either, but that people would then worship in spirit and in truth. If we look at the 2,000 years that have gone since, we could question it a little bit about how much progress we've made in the vision and dream that Jesus spoke about. And particularly in a time like COVID, one of the most challenging points that we have to come to terms with is the ability for people to gather in worship. But if we had made more progress perhaps in what Jesus put forward as the opportunity for people to worship in spirit and truth wherever they were, wherever two or three were gathered, then things may be quite different from that perspective. And it seems that in many respects, we need around the world a worship paradigm shift, not only because we happen to be in a time like COVID, but because for quite a long time, maybe the longest time, there have been unusual wrestlings to do with worship. I know as I work with churches and over many years dealt with inspiring worship minimum factors, it often has led to some of the stranger conversations that I have as an NCD coach. And some of those are, if a church is coming up low in the sermon results, and I ask the pastor, so how long is your average sermon? And they might tell me, 25 minutes. And how long should it be? And I say, I have no idea, but I'm just interested in if you have any ideas about how long your sermon should be. And how do you choose music? How do you decide the order of your worship? How do you do different things in the service? And, we're not really sure. How should we do it? And it tends to show lots of times that the area of worship is not necessarily all that well reflected. And there can be some strange discussions that sometimes emerge there. But if we go right to that view that Jesus was saying, the idea of a 24/7 life of worship and worship gatherings wherever two or three happen to be together, then we have quite an exceptional picture of that. But that worship paradigm shift that I believe very much needs to take place, one of the strongest guiding points for us there comes from the original NCD research that there's an adjective attached to worship, and that it's inspiring worship is the critical thing. The form, the location, whatever else is attached to that is very much secondary. But the inspiration, the breathing in by God and the breathing through people to others of God's Spirit is really the critical part when it comes to a worship reformation and a paradigm shift. So an inspiration paradigm shift is perhaps what we need to have. And many would say that in the world today, we would like to have considerably more inspiring political leaders. Many in the church would say we'd perhaps like to have somewhat more inspiring leaders within the church. And so in many different contexts, people are crying out both to be more inspired, and those who are wanting to take responsibility for the topic are certainly wanting to work out how can I be more inspiring? How can I be a vessel through which the Spirit of God can move and breathe into the lives of other people? And so that's very much our topic for today. It's our main topic. There's a secondary thing that's very important in our development in the NCD world at the moment, and that is bringing the next generation in contact and engaging the next generation with NCD principles. As NCD national partners and coaches and people around the world, we have to very seriously look at the fact that we may be passionate about the principles of NCD, but at the end of the day, if we all kind of get old and retire and die out, it's a bit of a problem if the next generation hasn't been introduced to the principles and is able to work with them and continue on the work, and in many respects do a very new work in relation to the principles. We know that young people matter, and any given church will say, yes, we need to reach young people. But often the thought is, how do we need to make the church so it may be relevant to young people? Whereas I think from an NCD principle perspective, a much more natural way of looking at things is to say, what would happen if we introduced the principles of NCD to young people and we simply saw what that natural, all by itself outworking of the church ended up looking like if they were to engage with the principles. And certainly for my discussions with various young people, very much including my own, within my own family, the interest to engage in NCD principles that make clear that there are certain pillars in life is very appealing to the next generation, because they live in a postmodern, post-truth, fake news world where many of them don't even really take all that seriously many of the things that appear on social media or in other kind of news sources. So for them, the idea that they could move through life with certain pillars in place that would guide maybe who they might meet and marry and decisions about jobs and all sorts of things is a very appealing thing. So I'm very glad to have with me Callum and Lara, who will hello, who are a couple of the young members on our team now, our hopefully ever-growing team of younger people in the next generation who are not only engaging with the principles of NCD, but are playing an important role in developing the tools and teaching the principles to all generations in a sense. So I'm very glad to have them presenting with me today through this topic, and they have played a very large part in the shaping of all that we're talking about today, which is very exciting. We may now, or at some point through the meeting, we may even have Simon Schwartz join us, who is Christian's son, one of his sons, and Simon's also beginning to play a significant part in shaping the NCD world kind of through the next generation, which is very exciting. So he's also part of our team. So before considering worship gatherings and the larger expression of inspiring worship, let's start with the heart of the matter. And that is, so what does happen when you enter the room? We change every room we enter, even if only by the smallest possible amount. Many in Christian ministry believe that only what they do or say makes a difference. However, just by walking into a room or joining together with others, we are increasing life or reducing it. That's the nature of being a bearer of the Spirit of God, either a good representative of the Spirit of God or someone that at that time is not representing the Spirit of God well at that time. This changing of the room has happened every time we entered a room from the time we were babies. And it will happen every time we join with others in the next 24 hours and for the rest of our lives. We can't escape our influence. It's part of being a human being. So it comes down to this, at the very core of this. Every moment, you're either inspiring those around you or draining life from them. There is no middle ground. Now, for some people, this can sound like a very strong statement. And for your interest, we've actually developed a statement like this for all of the 8 quality characteristics. But it's very important to understand that this statement connected to our NCD principles, in this case, inspiration, is itself very much inspired by the teaching of Jesus. In Mark 3:4, we have a situation where Jesus is being attacked by the Pharisees for healing a man on the Sabbath. And in his response, he says, well, is the Sabbath a day for doing good or for doing evil, for giving life or for killing. So he makes this very polarizing statement about the nature or indicating that even on the day of rest, as human beings with inescapable influence, we are going to have an effect on the people and things around us. So even on the day of rest, you can't turn your influence off. You will be having an effect on those around you. And he points out that surely you know that even if your donkey falls in the well, you're going to do something about it because you have the ability to do something about it. And you know in your heart that it's important to do the right thing. But time and time again, Jesus brings it down to this incredible degree of personal responsibility we have to make sure that in each moment we are deciding for life and not for darkness or for death. And so inspired by that, taken to the level of our in-city principles, we then have to recognize that every moment the principles we speak about apply. So, for example, in the case of love, every moment we are around other people, we're either loving them or damaging them. There's no middle ground. We can't turn off, we can't hide from our own influence. And so when it comes to inspiration, we can speak of inspiring worship services, certain inspiring speeches or inspiring moments, but the principle of inspiration applies at every moment. And is completely inescapable for us. And so this itself goes a long way to helping us move away from the idea that inspiration in church life relates to particular gatherings at particular times, but says this is a theme. So if a church has inspiring worship as a minimum factor, we're talking about an issue that needs to be addressed and can be addressed in the context of every moment of the lives of the people connected with that church. And so this is very challenging for us personally as we minister to others, but also as we try to help them come to terms with what it is to be people and to be influencing other people and inspiring them with the Spirit of God wherever we go. Yes. So if because of the universal principle of inspiration, we're going to change every room we enter, moment by moment, whether we like it or not, it's very important to understand what we breathe into the lives of others that smells nice, and also what we breathe into the lives of others that smells bad, if I can put it in that graphic way. So Callum is now going to describe these forms of inspiration a little more for you. Hopefully you will begin to sense the ways that you and those you work with both inspire and drain other people in any given moment. Thank you, Callum.
Hello. What do you bring to the room? We change every room we enter, and our presence has a very real effect on those around us every day. It's important to understand what we bring with us, what aromas follow us in our day-to-day activities. Do you bring an aroma of renewal, or are you a strong presence that others rely upon for strength? To help identify the ways that you affect the people around you, here are 6 types of inspiring people. Firstly, we have the searching person, who consistently seeks what could be better. A searching person brings an aroma of innovation and assurance that things can improve. Next, we have the grateful person, who frequently acknowledges what is already good in the world. A grateful person brings thankfulness and perspective on what we are blessed with. Then there's the steadfast person, who excels at holding on to what is important. A steadfast person brings stability in the challenges of life. They firmly hold on to truth and help others to do so as well. The surrendered person always lets go of what is not or should not be in their control and can humbly admit what they do not know. They show a great ability to weather the uncertainties of life and provide calm during times when things are beyond control. Second last, we have the sacrificial person who is good at pouring out their energy and resources. A sacrificial person brings a sense of reliability to the room with their ability to work hard and make great things happen. Finally, we have the wonder-filled person who is frequently in the process of renewing themselves and dreaming. The wonder-filled person brings refreshment and new ideas to the room. You may have noticed that each of the 6 postures I mentioned earlier has a complementary pair. Each pair represents one of the 3 traits of inspiration. A grateful person who is also good at searching will bring hope to the room. A wonder-filled person who is also good at sacrifice will bring capacity to the room. And a steadfast person who is good at surrendering will bring resilience to the room. If you can think of anyone in your life that inspires you, they will demonstrate at least one of these 3 traits. To delve deeper, let's look at the inspiring trait of hope. A grateful person who is good at searching will bring the inspiring trait of hope to the room. A hope-inspiring person lives with the constant question of what could be better. That's because a fundamental ingredient for hope is something to hope for. But a hope-inspiring person is also grateful for all that is already good. Hope requires a recognition for the good in what we already have. Your hope holds the power to inspire yourself and the others around you. However, when only one side of hope is practiced, we are at risk of robbing the hope of others and ourselves. If you are a person great at searching, you can constantly be thinking of better solutions to real problems. But if you're not careful to be grateful for what is already good, or even to acknowledge good things that others have done, you'll end up overwhelmed and overwhelming those around you. On the flip side, if you are a person that is consistently grateful, your encouragement and humility brings hope and life to others. So 1 second. But if you neglect to see the things that could be better, or to ask searching questions to find something better, you risk living a life of obliviousness that sucks the hope from yourself and those around you. But hope is not lost. You can expect to have a profoundly contagious hope when in any situation you can see what could be better or what could be worse, but also have the wisdom to know which posture will bring the most life. Now I'd like to hand over to Lara to talk about capacity.
Hello. Awesome. So the next inspiration trait is capacity. A wonderful person who also excels at sacrificing will bring capacity into the room. Capacity involves filling yourself with wonder, perceiving the world around you and dreaming of possibilities. It also takes sacrifice, pouring out your time, energy, and resources to make those possibilities become a reality. Someone with high capacity has the ability to make great things happen for both themselves and for others. When they enter the room, they bring with them a new benchmark for what is practically possible in life. A person with high capacity can inspire people with their vision and move them to take action. However, with any of these traits, if only half pursued, darkness creeps in. If you are a sacrificial person, you are able to make the tough decisions of life and focus on what has to get done. You're willing to put your shoulder to the wheel and work to make things happen. However, if you do not take time to fill yourself with wonder, renewing yourself and dreaming of possibilities, you'll simply end up exhausted and exhausting those around you. Even if you don't feel it The people around you probably will. They will feel pressured by you to be constantly giving up their time and their energy without feeling the freedom to recharge when needed. This leaves both you and others exhausted, lacking the energy to do the very things you want to get done. Without a sense of wonder to propel yourself and others forwards in your daily life, you will find yourself consistently running on low power mode. Your lack of wonder is the most likely reason why others will not join you in a life of sacrifice, and why even the very things you yourself are sacrificing for may not prove worthwhile in the end. This could all be turned around for the better if you learn to refresh yourself, ask questions, and dream of possibilities. You would unlock the capacity to achieve greater things than you currently can even imagine. You would inspire others, helping them to see past their current situation and motivating them to sacrifice for a worthy cause. On the other hand, if you are wonder-filled, you are able to consider others' perspectives and see the potential in the people and situations you are faced with. Your wonderment allows you to see a wide range of possibilities at any given moment. However, without focusing on what is most important in the immediate and consistently sacrificing to make those possibilities happen, your dreaming is just wishful thinking. Even if you're not aware of it, others will feel hesitant to share in your dreams. They know that without sacrifice, consistency, and follow through, those dreams will never become a reality. After watching you, they may even begin to diminish the importance of dreaming for themselves. Dreaming will seem like a waste of time, a distraction that keeps you from doing the important things that need to get done. Without the necessary sacrifice and focus, your visions will eventually run out of puff. It won't take long for you to be captured by more possibilities and more dreams, but these two will not come to pass if you do not count the cost and go on to pay it. This could all be so different if you put aside distractions, prioritize things for today, and did what has to be done. You would unlock the capacity to do the things you imagined. You would inspire others to dream of what could be and give them the motivation to come alongside you in making it happen. I'm going to hand back over to Callum, and he's going to talk about the third inspiration trait, resilience.
Hello again. Let's talk about bringing resilience to the room. A steadfast person who is good at surrendering will bring the inspiring trait of resilience to the room. A resilient person holds on to what is important because to be unshakable requires a strong, firm foundation. But a resilient person also lets go of what is not in their control because to be unbreakable requires flexibility. Your resilience can be a rock for yourself and the others around you to find strength and refuge. However, when only one side of resilience is practiced, we are at risk of compromising the strength of others and ourselves. If you are a person great at being steadfast, you can hold on to what is important even in the face of adversity. But if you are not careful to humbly surrender what you cannot control or should not control, you risk becoming brittle and obstinate. This compromises the structural integrity of your resilience. You face the real risk of shattering when hit with opposition, because the firm foundations you built upon have been contaminated by half-truths, bad ideas, or lies that you should never have held on to in the first place. The shattering damages not only you, but also everyone that is leaning on you. If you are a person great at surrendering, you can humbly let go of anything beyond your control, allowing you to bend but not break. But if you fail to hold on to what is true, good, and within your control, you risk adopting an attitude of defeatedness. Having no foundations or roots to keep you planted puts you at risk of crumbling every time life challenges you. To make things worse, every time you crumble, even the good foundations are compromised. This pattern can lead to defeatedness, an attitude that assumes nothing is in your control, and that it would be pointless to try. It is what it is. Your attitude leaves you blind to the things you can do, should be doing, and what people need you to be. But you can have unshakable and unbreakable resilience when in any situation you are prepared to hold on or let go, but also have the wisdom to know what you should or shouldn't hold on to.
Me again. Awesome. Thank you, Callum. So those are the 3 inspiration traits: hope, capacity, and resilience. So we've looked at the different ways that one person or each individual can inspire or can drain the life of the people around them when they enter the room. But what happens when lots of people enter the room? When groups of people gather together, the same effects we've spoken about are played out at an even higher level, for better or for worse. So how inspiring is your workplace, or your children's school, or your family gatherings? The inspiration felt in these places will be determined by each individual that is making up that gathering. So what about your weekly worship service? Many well-meaning church leaders try their hardest to bring about inspiring worship services at their church. They alter their sermons, they change up their music, and try starting up new creative activities. Don't get me wrong, all of those things can have a great effect on the worship service and help to inspire people. But none of those things can make any meaningful difference to a congregation that drains more inspiration from the room than is being breathed into it. How could you hope to inspire a congregation that brings with them a deluge of exhaustion and overwhelmedness and defeatedness with a carefully selected Bible reading? It just doesn't happen. And worse still, it can leave the leaders feeling hopeless and responsible for the lack of inspiration felt at church, when in reality, the quality of that small frame of time is most largely dictated by the congregation's ability to inspire and be inspired at every other moment in their week and ultimately in their life. So the only conclusion that I can draw from that is that the key focus in any church hoping to grow their inspiring worship must be on growing inspiring worshipers. So the key to an inspiring worship service is having inspired and inspiring worshipers. After all, when you strip back the music, the sermon, the activities, and everything else, a worship gathering is just a gathering of worshipers. That's all it is. So worship, or worthship, is what we see as greatest worth. Even though we may say that God is the most important and worthy thing, our attitudes indicate otherwise. Our attitudes suggest at times that perhaps our intellect or our weaknesses or even our own suffering are what we value the most. Until we get our attitudes right, we will always struggle with idolizing unworthy things. Until we get our attitudes right, we will be in some way undervaluing God. Inspiration happens when people show through the way that they live their lives the real worth of things. Authentic inspiration happens when God and everything true, good, and beautiful is valued above all else. This will not happen until we develop the attitudes of teachability, discipline, and humility. So teachability is about filling yourself with wonder, searching for answers, and holding steadfastly onto truth. Discipline is about holding steadfastly onto truth sacrificing for the future, and being grateful for what you have. Humility is about being grateful for what you have, surrendering what is out of your control, and filling yourself with wonder. When people are mature in these attitudes, they bring the life-giving breath of God with them wherever they go. Imagine what a gathering of teachable, disciplined, and humble worshipers would look like, what it would feel like. Imagine what your worship services would look like if the entire congregation was teachable, disciplined, and humble. The inspiration of God would flow freely through every person, changing the environment, not only inside the church, but outside of it as well. Yes, thank you. So now I'm going to hand over back to Adam so he can talk more about that.
Thank you, Lara and Callum. So hopefully you have a little bit of a picture from what the guys have just shared about the overall paradigm of the three colors of worship that we've been working on for quite some period of time now, to speak into the area of inspiring worship and to help bring it to become something that is a moment by moment, every day, 24/7 part of the Christian life. And more than that, perhaps you sensed, and for some of you who do work with perhaps parachurch organizations, or even not necessarily Christian groups, perhaps in business consulting or any other area, perhaps you have seen that these exact same terms, the very ones you see on the screen in front of you, apply in any different context as well. So the opportunity with what we're developing is enormous to be able to speak into any kind of group or workplace or family context or local church, in order to develop and grow a much more inspired and inspiring environment. Anyway, that's what we think is the case, and we're pretty convinced about that. But we'd love to just have a little bit of time now where you can have a chat with each other in some breakout groups to explore this a little bit further. And so the question that we are posing, and please allow me a moment to put it in the chat window. I realize that you're not going to be able to see it after you go to the groups. I'm just going to put this in the window. There we go. All right, the question we're looking at is, how could this three-color paradigm of every moment inspiration change the way people think about inspiring worship? So just like to put you into some groups right now, just to discuss that for perhaps 10 minutes. And remember that you will be entering a room. And so what happens when you enter the room? And I look forward to gaining a sense that you have been able to inspire each other in that discussion. So here's some immediate practical application of the very topics we're talking about. So I will just assign this now. And yeah, good luck inspiring each other. So I hope you were able to inspire each other and take that as a practice time. And also I hope there was some helpful insights that maybe emerged about how this could work its way out, this paradigm in lots of different contexts. We are very keen over time to have, hopefully, one-on-one discussions at different times, wherever it's useful, to explore in the context of your own ministry what this paradigm looks like. So we trust that the conversation is just beginning. Let me just move back to the presentation. So we move to the question, what if people recognized every gathering as an opportunity for inspiration? In a time of pandemic and restrictions, we may be in danger of only thinking the opportunities for inspiring worship have reduced. In one sense, this is of course true. But if we understand every room we enter as a place for inspiration, this perception starts to change. More than that, every room we enter also then becomes a place of worship where we help others see what is of greatest worth in life. This is the process of worthship. This worship does not have to start with everyone agreeing that God is of greatest worth. Jesus didn't start there. Instead, whether they were believers or not, Jesus constantly helped others to see who and what was of greatest worth in their lives. So many times, this then helped people to see that Jesus was pointing to God. To every room and gathering, Jesus brought searching, gratefulness, steadfastness, a surrendered spirit, a sense of wonder and sacrifice. As a result, Jesus is the ultimate
Hello, can you hear me,
inspiring worshiper.
Okay, sure. No problem. Okay, thank you.
There we are. So in the next 24 hours, you and everyone you work with will repeatedly either inspire or drain life from those around you. In each moment, we encourage you to look closely to see either one of those things happening, and then to see if you can detect what would need to change to make sure that the breath of God's life is truly breathed into the room. Inspiration is an astoundingly powerful and yet mysterious thing. If we tried to ask people, do you believe that inspiration exists? Pretty well everyone would say, yes, it exists. But if you said, what is inspiration? They would typically have to describe it in terms of what inspiration does. But what inspiration is, for many people, they would get caught up on. From a Christian worldview, we would likely say that inspiration is the breath and presence and personality of God through his spirit coming through people's lives. But then to understand that as an active force, a thing we carry with us, a thing we can represent well or we can represent badly in any given context, is not necessarily something that we live with all the time, but is something that we need to grasp for ourselves and need to be able to convey to others so that they can understand what it looks like. And if we take a simple example, if you have a church that has a very low inspiring worship result, we can be pretty certain that they don't really understand the dynamics and nature of inspiration at all, and may not even recognize the number of times just by entering the room that they suck the oxygen out of it. So this is part of the challenge that we have. It's our collective job then to help people get a handle on this mysterious thing of inspiration, if an inspiring worship reformation is to come to pass. So obviously, as we do in the NCD world, we like to try to understand things in a God-centered, three-colored type way. That's at the end of the day what all the three-color tools are about, is saying, let's just suppose for a moment that God is actually at the center of everything. And how would we understand this topic if there was a God-centered viewpoint of that topic? So we like to do that and like to try to understand complicated things and try to simplify that. But at the end of the day, that can still just leave people frustrated, wondering, well, now you've diagnosed me, what on earth do I do about that? And so this then comes down to the development of tools. And so we've been very, very busy for a period of time developing at least the start of the toolbox. And we hope that many of you will kind of add to that toolbox over time. But just now I'd like to just share what we have been working on as the kind of toolbox for helping people to grasp this mystery of inspiration and to grow in that way. So the first thing, and a very familiar sort of area, is of course developing an inspiration test, including interactive personal and group result profiles. Many of you have no doubt taken some of, or perhaps even all, the three-color tests. And one of the things we've been bound by through the ages, is that when we first developed those tests, the internet was actually one of the minimum factors, because to try to show graphical displays of things was quite difficult. So one day I will tell people the secrets of how we actually produce the reports, and that will cause lots of smiling for anyone into technology. But the beauty is the internet has caught up, and in certain respects, in terms of being able to present more complex things and ways of animating and show things. So we're excited that with this particular tool, we're developing a new type of approach to results, which is much more interactive and particularly allows people to kind of choose your own adventure through the results. If you have a person who is very insecure about inspiration, doesn't even believe that they have any ability to inspire other people, then their results will allow them to dwell in that strength area for longer and to just be affirmed and consolidated in their inspiration strength, to be able to talk to others about that, to get a clearer picture of what happens positively when they enter the room. But in the same way, anyone engaging with the results at the time that they are ready to take the plunge into the bad news, where I need to grow, where I need to have a better effect when I walk into the room, then they can jump across to that at any point in the results. And then once in there, once they've plumbed the depths, looking at the challenges that exist in their own life, once they are convinced that however deep they've gone and they've reached a point of being convinced that they need to grow, then they can step off to kind of the third element, which is, what can I do about it? And that's then leads to the practical tools. So I'm quite excited about that kind of new approach. And of course, it'll be much more mobile device friendly and all those sorts of things. But then on the group result profile side, the whole idea there is that if you do have it could be a family or a small group or a whole congregation, it's possible then to look at the group result profile. And if you take the example of a worship service, if a whole congregation has, say, a deficiency in searching, then what is it that they need to be instructed in? What teaching do they need to encounter? What parts of the Bible do they need to take more seriously and explore further, so that they can be shaped collectively even towards becoming a more inspired and inspiring community of people? So we think that'll be quite a powerful process, whether a church is working on a minimum factor of inspiring worship, or they simply want to kind of put a broom through worship and say, let's bring it back to the core of what this is meant to be as a gathering of people. So we've done loads of work on that, and moving towards the final stages there. We then have the prompt question, and this is a very simple thing, but an incredibly important thing in the overall scheme of the process. And so while I don't have it exactly scientifically verified, I and anyone around me can give some reasonable indication that for me, taking the test, the prompt question that would become most central for me would be, Adam, what can you be grateful for right now? Obviously, as a researcher and a searching type person, I'm very capable of plumbing the depths of despair and darkness in the world and seeing every imaginable thing that is broken and needs fixing. So that makes me sometimes quite oxygen sucking when I come to the dinner table or come to other rooms in life. And so, as we said earlier, inspiration and all of the dynamics of a healthy Christian life are a moment by moment thing. And so we need to make sure that at any given moment, if a person is sitting there and willing to look up and see the wall in their office or room or wherever, and can see this prompt, that it's able to speak into that very moment and to say, despite all these different circumstances and everything happening right now, and this completely unique context in this moment, ask yourself this question: what can I be grateful for right now? And then beyond that, you'll see at the bottom of the page, 4 examples which come out of your own results and prompt you about the kinds of things that you specifically, so this is unique, even if you've got the same question as someone else, the prompts at the bottom will be completely unique based upon your results, that give you a bit of a suggestion. By the way, you should maybe show gratitude for what you've been given. Maybe you should actually celebrate the good in life with others, etc. So that's a completely unique prompt page, and in a sense summarizes the entire result into this one page for anyone who takes the test. So that's a really critical and central part of the growth process for anyone taking the test. The next part in the toolbox that we're developing is kind of calling it your inspiration network, if you like. And this is a way of connecting you with other people connected with you who have also taken the inspiration test, and an easy reference way to find out who could you learn from. Now that might mean that you actually meet with them and discuss questions and more formally go through a growth process, or it can be as simple as being aware that your friend Sally is actually good at gratefulness and you haven't quite noticed that before. You haven't noticed that, or is perhaps very good at hope, and you haven't realized that that's what Sally brings to the room. But just by reflecting on that, you realize you can learn something, and you even have a friend who can teach you more about that area. So this is a way of connecting people with each other, where the people become the teachers and the living examples of what different aspects of inspiration looks like. I kind of think of it like LinkedIn, but more honest and more objective, if I can say that. And perhaps dealing with slightly more important things as well. Yes, now I'll just hand over to Lara just to share with you about a few of the other tools that she's had particular involvement in developing.
So we've been developing a few different databases as a part of the inspiration toolbox. One of the ones that I've had the most involvement in is the song database or music database. So what this is, we know music and song to be a very powerful form of inspiration, not only in the church, but across religion and age and ethnicity and time. So yeah, it's a powerful source of inspiration. And it's no wonder that some of the most universally popular songs that we know display very strongly at least one of the worship postures or inspiration postures that we've talked about today. So the inspiration song database is a compilation of songs categorized based off the posture of inspiration they are expressing. So these will be accessible directly from your results, but also if you just were to go to the 3 Color World website, where you'll be able to search for them categorically. For example, songs for wonder, or songs for sacrifice, or songs for searching, stuff like that. So they'll also be playlisted in places like Spotify and YouTube. So that you can just have those playlists as well. So new songs will be always being added and open for suggestion from the public as well. This tool is one that I'm very excited about as a music lover. And I already make use of it, perks of being a part of the team. I already make use of it in my own personal life. So the effect of like listening to a steadfast playlist when I'm headed somewhere in the car or something, on the way to a gathering where I feel like I'm needing some particular strength in this situation, being able to just listen to a playlist that's been put together based off the fact that they all represent steadfastness. Yeah, that's really profound and has a really powerful effect. So I'm really excited to see what the effect this could have in worship gatherings, especially for people wanting to, base their meetings around 3 colors of worship or stuff like that. Yes. So the other 2 databases, I'll talk about this one, as well as the song database. We're also developing a database with a collection of stories from, as Adam said before, the most inspiring person to have walked the planet, which is Jesus Christ. So I guess it's interesting to think of, was Jesus a wonder-filled man? Did he search? Did he express gratitude? And what did this actually look like in his life? So this database is a compilation of stories from scripture so that we can learn how Jesus lived such a high capacity, hope-filled and resilient life. And that we might be inspired and strive to look more like him in our worship in the everyday. The last database that is in development is a quotes database, which is a compilation. It's a compilation of quotes from people that do a great job at summarizing core truths about each of the inspiration postures. Yes, so once again, all three of these tools will be accessible directly from your results or from the 3-Color World website for you to use in your personal lives, for training other people, or for use in larger scale gatherings. So those are our 3 databases. I'm now going to hand over to Callum, who's going to talk about one of our other tools.
Hello again. If you're interested in offering 3-color inspiration training as part of your coaching toolbox, we're in the process of developing a 4-week online course that you will be able to take and then take others through. Designed to be undertaken by a small team from a church or organization, the training focuses on unpacking your own results, taking others through their results, growing your inspiration ministry, and finally, training other inspiration trainers. If the 3-color inspiration paradigm is to make its way around the world, a huge number of trainers will be needed, and hopefully a lot of them will emerge from the younger generation. We are designing the training to equip you with all of the necessary resources to lead your own inspiration workshops. Hopefully you'll find the training a valuable addition to what you can offer those you serve.
A very interesting exercise of musical chairs in this room at the moment. We need a big sliding seat we can all move along. Lastly, in the toolbox to support, hopefully support the work you may wish to do in this inspiration area, is a dedicated inspiration support team. What we haven't had historically, we've had various support people assisting with the different discipleship tools in the NCD toolbox, but with this project and progressively with the other tools in the set as well, we're wanting to establish a dedicated support team that's kind of your direct help desk person with be it technical questions or perhaps more importantly, experience questions about how to approach different areas. They'll be developing frequently asked question kind of lists, just to grow the sort of global knowledge base as we continue to gain experience with this paradigm. And so that way, wherever you're working, you won't feel alone. And so Callum and Lara are the initial members of that inspiration support team with myself and Christian and other people like Bert Olbrich on the call, sort of as part of the background as well in terms of providing support to all of these things. So we really hope that you will feel supported if you begin engaging in these processes, and that that we'll really see something quite fantastic happen as a result of a potential worship reformation that really comes back to the core principles of what is this about in every moment of life, and that all else is sort of stripped away that is perhaps unnecessary around the worship realm, and brought right back to the core of what is most God honoring and is most inspiring in a world needing to feel the breath of God more strongly in so many different contexts. So the team's made great progress in developing the inspiration test and these various support tools. And we expect to be able to launch the tools in the coming months. There's the specific, the various other parts of the tools. However, right away, there are some things that you can do because we've reached a very critical point, and pleased to say that you're the first people in the world to become aware of this significant moment from, I think it was a bit over 10 years ago. Christian and I were talking about this topic in Stuttgart airport, I'm pretty sure. And he was asking my thoughts about where this might go to. And we haven't obviously worked on this completely solidly. There's been lots of other projects as well, but in the background it's being developed over a long period of time. So this is quite a significant moment. It's nice to be able to share it with you all. And that is that right now you can help out with the inspiration research phase. As many of you will know, we always have this data collection phase that's necessary to do the proper validation on the studies, and also to find out lots of other interesting things like, you know, what's the tendency of Anglicans, what's the worship tendency of Baptists or various groups, and to be able to then publish that sort of information, which can be very, very instructive. But importantly, to gather the data that allows us to do the necessary work to produce the profile itself. And anyone that participates in this initial phase of the research will also receive a free inspiration profile when the overall research phase is completed. We can't produce them straight away because we need the collective data to provide accurate results. So obviously we'd love it if all of you were happy to participate in that, and anyone else you know that may be interested in the research or may have a particular interest in worship generally. We obviously need lots of data from around the world to produce, you know, reliable results. So that will be a major focus for us in the next few weeks, is promoting that and getting more people involved. So that's something you can do right away. Another thing is, if you like, you can follow the Inspiration Project on Facebook. So the address is there, and we'll also send these things out to you after the presentation as well. So we hope to provide updates on what's happening in the research, particularly in this phase, but then also additional updates of stories that emerge and experiences that have been had. One thing we've not done too well, that's probably an understatement, in the NCD world, is to capture and share the stories of what happens from NCD implementation. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of stories, but I don't know if you have it in your own language or culture, but at least in Australia, you say you need a compass and a cut lunch to go trying to find these stories. You can Google NCD stories and it's difficult to find. So we're actually taking some steps at the moment to put some people in place whose dedicated job is to simply gather and capture the stories in the NCD world and to be able to retell them, so that people get to hear stories of progress and challenge and everything else that comes from that. So that'll be part of the inspiration feed, and also the same will be happening with the rest of the tool set as well. And just one little aside thing connected to it. If you'd like to support Callum and Lara. Callum and Lara are singer-songwriters and music producers. And if you're interested at all in some of their work, then you can kind of follow them there. They were recently commissioned by the Salvation Army, actually, to write a worship song for the Salvation Army's self-denial appeal. So you can actually see a video of that as well. But yes, as I say, we're wanting to try to reach out and to many, many more young people in the anywhere near the NCD world in the coming days, to train them up, get them involved, and to speak into the older generation, but particularly to speak into their own generation as well. So I really hope that each of you in your own ministries will be looking to do that as well. Just as an aside, we are looking at the prospect of doing this similar webinar as it may be useful into different countries or into different groups around the world, this kind of introductory webinar on inspiration with different groups. And what we hope will happen there is that wherever possible, those who attend it will make sure they bring along someone who is perhaps under 30 with them to begin getting inspired about the principles of NCD, and hopefully being inspired by some other young people who are already involved in it as well. So that's a major focus for us in the coming time. So we're coming right to the end of the webinar now, and yeah, we're, as you can probably tell a little bit, we're pretty excited about this development and the possibilities that surround it, and especially since we know from NCD research that of the 8 quality characteristics, the one that trends upwards in quality as groups are larger is inspiring worship, which is understandable. If you gather inspired people together, the hot coals of the fire are brought together, then the heat increases. Now, with COVID and the like, that is challenging. But as we've said through this webinar, even if it's a small gathering, it's still a gathering. And if people are genuinely inspired and inspiring in that gathering, then what can happen in countless gatherings every week around the world can have an enormous impact despite the other challenges that might be around. So that's where we're at the moment, and just interested now to go to any, in our final minutes, any thoughts or questions people have, or anything they'd like to share or ask about this topic or any NCD related topic. Please just feel free to unmute your microphone, and hopefully we won't have too much chaos and we can field some questions.
You just mentioned that it's out of the 8 quality characteristic, this one is upwards trending. What does it mean in relation to what upwards trending?
Okay, yes. So from the NCD research, one of the things we could identify is that as churches become larger, because of the complexity of organizations and having more people interacting with each other, the other 7 quality characteristics tend to go downwards in quality as the church becomes larger, because it's a more complex thing. That doesn't mean that you can't improve the health of a larger church. It just becomes more difficult. But there's a tendency that just by a church being larger, inspiring worship can become a bit higher just because of the energy that is there with more people being available.
On your diagram here, you haven't put the inside around the outside, like sometimes you do.
The dark zones?
Yeah.
Oh, you're very melancholic, Neil.
That's me. I looked at your question and I thought that's probably the question that I came up with.
I think we're very similar in that regard. Yes. So certainly, if we show the whole picture, then indicating those danger zones and where the darkness creeps in is an important part. And it's something that we haven't, in some tools we've emphasized it, but in other areas we haven't emphasized it. And we're realizing the need to include that in the presentation of results more, because one of the tendencies people have when they look at NCD principles is this idea that, well, if I apply them, then things will go well, but it won't matter too much if I don't apply them. But that's simply not what universal principles are about. They apply whether you like it or not. Therefore, if you are not deliberately applying empowering leadership, for example, if you are not empowering, you are oppressing. If you are not loving, you are damaging. If you're not inspiring, you are draining the life from other people. And we haven't been clear enough in our messaging about that. And it's a much more serious sounding message, but it's simply a much more honest message. Now, we don't have to hit people with that message straight away, but somewhere in the process of people learning about the principles of God's kingdom, they need to be able to become aware, just like in that, Mark 3:4 sense, Jesus is saying there's a principle at play here. On the Sabbath or any other day or any other moment, you're either giving life or you're or leading towards death. Yeah, so thanks for raising that, Neil, because it is a point we're wanting to emphasize more strongly in the tool, so that people understand just how significant the implications are of applying or not applying the principles that we're talking about.
There's just one other thing too. You seem to be suggesting that inspiring worship or inspiration is the minimum factor. That you might say that leadership lacks inspiration and ministry lacks inspiration. In fact, you could apply that adjective to every other noun of the 8 quality characteristics.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's a very good way to think about the every moment idea, because it's, if you have inspiration low in a church, then yes, that's going to be most apparent when everyone gathers together, but equally it's also likely to be appearing in leadership, when people are doing ministry, what they experience when they're praying, when they're in their small groups in different places. And so that's very much one of the ways of understanding the every moment nature of the principle. Yeah, very good point.
So if inspiration is your minimum factor, passionate spirituality is your maximum, it means the lack of inspiration is done with passion.
I'm passionately uninspired. No, it's a very good point. I've worked with a number of churches that have passionate spirituality at the top and inspiring worship at the bottom. And what you tend to find is that it's a very individual spirituality, extremely individual. Like they go to their prayer closets, but literally none of it leaks out. The inspiration doesn't flow to the other people. So it's a very individual form of spirituality. It's very passionate when they're on their own with God. They just don't share it with anyone, which is meaning the breath is not going out to anybody else. It's a very selfish experience. Yeah. You've been doing this a long time, Neil, haven't you?
About 20 years.
Yes. Any other thoughts or questions?
Just kind of wondering, the invitation to be part of the research project could extend to the network of churches that we work with, or I mean, specifically, I'm asking for me that I work with, so I can invite some of our leaders into exploring this as part of the research phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'd like lots of data from lots of places. I mean, the more data we have, the more quickly we can move to the practical implementation parts, but also to identify, very specific things out of the research. So please, if you have networks like that, definitely invite them to take part. That'd be great.
Core. Thanks. Great presentation.
Thank you.
On that website, do you specify what data in the research you are after, or what we should look at?
So the website just steps you through the specific questions. There's lots of questions. Some of it is specific to the development of your own personal result, and obviously helping everyone's results to be made, because we need to collect that together for comparison purposes, and other questions that are outside of that help us to group the data and to look for other insights about how inspiration might affect other aspects of life. But if you go to the website, that'll just step you through the questions related to this particular research project. Great. Any final burning questions or thoughts?
No, thank you, Adam. That's really lots of food for thought, lots of encouragement, challenge. So thank you very much. Thank you to Callum and to Lara as well.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Great job, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry?
I'm also very grateful for Callum and Lara, because they did the thing with the songs, and I find it extremely good because it's a language we all understand and we love, and I'm very excited when it's on the website. Then, thanks very much.
That's very exciting. Awesome.
Yes. Yes, I think it's going to be a very popular part of the picture, and help people maybe even understand why they select songs or why they listen to them and what it means as well. Lovely. I would love to just pray for us all right now. Would you join me? Jesus, you are the greatest empowering leader. You're the greatest activator of gifts, the greatest impassioner, etc., etc. And you are truly the most inspiring worshiper that has ever come to this planet. And we thank you for that. And we thank you that the way you expressed worship was such a natural thing. It wasn't formalized. It was just lived out in showing with every encounter, with every different person, what worth those people had in the eyes of God, what worth the things around them had, and getting those things in order, understanding what is most important and what doesn't matter so much, and what is completely unimportant in life is such a critical thing for us, particularly in a busy and many ways complicated world. And we just thank you that that you came and modeled that so much for us. And we just really pray that we and anyone we work with will capture the vision that you shared on that, at that well with that lady, and that we would move into a place where we can see every moment of life, every time we gather with others, as an opportunity for your spirit to flow through us into their lives, and that we would become more skilled in understanding what was most needed in order to represent your will and your ways in that room, that we would see rooms and we would see that gratefulness is needed in this room now, or that searching is needed in this room now, or steadfastness or surrender, or whatever is needed at that time, that we would become clear about that. And as we practice that ourselves, we would become much more able to share that with others and to teach others your ways in the inspiring of other people. And we thank you for the unbelievable opportunity that we get and the freedom you give us to be able to take part in your work in this world. Your empowerment of us is extraordinary and is certainly inspiring. We pray particularly for the younger generation around us, that we will all have eyes to look for who are the young people, not just to sort of be a bit involved in things, but to really engage and teach us a thing or two about what all of these principles mean, and that we will see that universal principles means it transcends ages, and principles of your kingdom apply to all ages. So give us eyes for those younger people, and that we would be empowerers of them and raise them up and give them everything they need to make a real difference in this world. We pray for those who are really struggling with the circumstances of COVID at the moment, and pray that in the uncountable number of ways that you are speaking to people now and challenging different things and using these circumstances to help people reassess their own lives and their perspectives and their approaches. That there will be, as you do with all things, much good that you are able to draw out of this current situation, and that we will emerge the other side as a much more powerful, more loving, empowering church, seeing transformation in this world. I pray for all my friends here in this meeting for the remainder of their day, and that they will be inspiring of those around them. We love you, Jesus. We pray all of this in your name and for your sake, and to make you smile. Amen.
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 Thank you all, and look forward to hopefully talking with you more on this topic in the coming days.
Brilliant.
All right. Bless you all.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye-bye.
See you all. Bye.